So for some reason, all of my holds from the library decided to come at the exact same time. So welcome to a reading vlog where I'm reading all of my library books. So that's going to be fun for all of us involved. Oh, sorry. My dog was playing with my stand and I swear to God, I think he's like effed it up. Anyway, so let me just quickly show you the books that all came. Actually, 3 of them were holds. One of them was a spontaneous grabbing off the non-fiction shelf, and I actually started that. It's Maggie Nelson's On Freedom. I read, sorry, let me just move you one second. I think the is that a bit better? You can actually see me a bit better. Anyway, so this is Maggie Nelson's On Freedom. I read Maggie Nelson's The Argonauts, which is a memoir in a similar vein to Miriam Machado's In the Dream House. It's kind of like a deconstruction of what it means to be a memoir. So theory is involved. It can be quite academic in some places, but I really enjoyed the way Maggie Nelson like communicated her story. I like the way that she crafted her narrative. And this is her most recent release. It was released in 2021, and it's always been like in my mind. I don't know why I didn't end up purchasing it. I think it's because it was in hardback when it first released. I think the hardback was just too expensive, so I was like, oh, I'll get it eventually when it comes out in paperback. Bitch, it's been out in paperback for a while and I never really got to it. And then when I went to the library to pick up my holds, I saw this just sitting there and I thought, that's a coincidence. So I picked it up. I started reading it. So yeah, and so I've been having my eye on it for a while. I started reading it already. I'm only 30 pages in. Yeah, it's great. It's basically what it says in the title. It's on freedom. So a few years ago, I think nearly a decade ago, Maggie Nelson wrote a book called The Art of Cruelty, and it was talking about the art of cruelty and how like the aesthetics of shock and how that can sometimes be related or is related to cruelty and the affect of that. And this one kind of stemmed from that piece of work, because she realized as she was talking about cruelty, she was also talking about care and talking about freedom in a way, and questioning like what is freedom. Especially, she started writing this in 2016, so there were things happening in her context specifically, like in the US, Trump, that was like we're bringing up these kind of questions up about what is freedom and the binary of like freedom and unfreedom, and how that has a relationship with like the aesthetics of care, and like what is care, like what does that mean, what does freedom mean, and how do we in a society that is capitalist, that is continuing the destruction of our planet, that, you know, is built on foundations of oppression and violence, like how can we be free? Like what does that mean? And that's like the question that she is essentially asking. So like in her own words, this is kind of encapsulating what this book is meant to do for her. Like why she's bringing this up in the world, why she's creating it. On Freedom will not argue that mindful breathing will immediately deliver us social equity and justice, or reverse the course of global warming, but it will propose that if we want to divest from the habits of paranoia, despair, and policing that have come to menace and control even the most well-intentioned among us, habits that, when continuously indulged, shape what's possible in both our present and future, we are going to need methods by which we feel and know that other ways of being are possible, not just in some revolutionary future that may never come, or in some idealized past that likely never existed or is irretrievably lost, but right here and now. So freedom as being like something that you continue to do, and it's like a practice that you do. It is not some sort of achievable one milestone event that it happens and you have freedom and then that's it. It's like this continual struggle. So that's what this book is, I think, and I'm very fascinated by it. I'm having a good time reading it. Anyway, the other 3 books that I finally got off from hold. If you've watched my like survey of women's prize predictions that I did a few months ago, I mentioned wanting to read this book, and then I think I mentioned it again a few vlogs later, and I said that I was on hold for it. Well, finally it came. This is Fight Night by Miriam Toews. I'm so excited. It only took how long? Anyway, I think because this is like the only edition that my library like system has, so I had to wait a bit for it. But I remember reading the blurb of this when I was doing the survey, because I had never ever heard of Miriam Toews, but I vaguely heard of women talking. I vaguely heard that book because it became a movie, but like I didn't really know much about this author. But a lot of people said that this could be on the long list of the Women's Prize, and when I read the blurb I was like, yes, I need to read this immediately. Like this sounds right up my alley. I'm so excited. So if you don't know what it's about, it's the blurb. Pause if you want to read. I'm not going to read all of it, I'm just going to read a little bit of it. So Swiv has taken her grandmother's advice too literally. Now she's at home, suspended from school. Mum is pregnant and preoccupied, and so Swiv is the older woman's charge, receiving a very different form of education from a teacher with a style all her own. Because the grandmother says, "You're a small thing and you must learn to fight." I feel like this might break me. Like I feel like I might cry. I'm such an easy crier, but I'm very excited. So we're going to be reading this in this vlog. The next one is it a novella? I don't know, it's tiny. And this is Hex. I don't know why I put this on. I think I must have seen something online, or I saw it in like a library list. Like, you know, when they recommend books based on what you've already read, just like at the bottom of the screen, the bottom of the page. And this sounded, again, interesting because it's about witches. It's about a witch trial in Scotland. Yes. So it's Hex by Jenni Fagan, and it looks really cool, right? It's quite small. This takes place in 1590, and it's the last night of her life. Convicted witch Galis Duncan receives a mysterious visitor, Iris, who says she comes from a future where women are still persecuted for who they are and what they believe. As the hours pass and dawn approaches, Gelis, I need to figure out how to pronounce that, I'm so sorry, recounts the circumstances of her arrest, brutal torture, confession and trial, while Iris offers support, solace and the tantalizing prospect of escape. Hex is a visceral depiction of what happens when a society is consumed by fear and superstition. Yeah, like, this is a book for me. And I'm really, really happy that I put it on hold and then forgot that I put it on hold. So, fantastic. And it's absolutely tiny. It's like 101 pages. So, we're going to be reading this relatively soon, I think. And then the next one is one that I think I've put on a list on my Goodreads somewhere, like, because this looks like something, I think this was, I'm pretty sure the reason why I put this book on hold is because I saw someone on booktube or bookstagram talk about it, and then I went and searched it on Goodreads, and I was like, yeah, I need to read this. This sounds like something that I would very much enjoy. And it's this book. It's Sabrina and Corina. It's a short story collection by, they put the barcode over the bloody name, fajardo-anistine. And this is a debut collection, or like a debut situation overall, I believe. But it's a short story collection about friendship, motherhood, mother-daughter relationships, and the deep-rooted truth of our homelands. It's a story collection that breathes life into her Latina characters of Indigenous ancestry and the land they inhabit in the American West. So yeah, this sounds gorgeous, and I haven't been reading short story collections recently. Like, usually I love short story collections, so I'm gonna pick this up as well. But yeah, so they're the books. I'll show you our little TBR for this reading vlog. We're gonna read these. How cute. So I don't know what I'm gonna read after On Freedom. I think I might start the short story collection and maybe read Hex and leave this to last. But yeah, I'm so excited. So that's the plan for this reading vlog. I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm not going to say it's a weekly vlog because it might take longer than a week, but I'm very excited. I will see you soon. I haven't updated this vlog in like a week. On Freedom by Maggie. Don't look at my clothes in the background. Okay. I have issues with this book. I think, like, I'm not finished yet. I'm not even halfway, or I might just be halfway. I'm finding I won't be able to articulate what I'm thinking because I feel like I don't have the language for it. But so Maggie Nelson is a genius. Like, I still think she's a genius. The way that she writes and thinks of things, incredible. But I feel like, in a really strange way, she lacks a lot of nuance in issues that she's talking about. And that feels really surreal to say because she's a professor of English. Like, maybe I'm unintelligent and I'm not understanding her point, but I feel like there's almost like no point to what she's arguing. Like, art should be reparative, but it shouldn't repair. Stuff like that. Like drugs can be, you know, a way to gain freedom, but being sober is also a kind of freedom. It's just the way that she talks about consent and power dynamics. Like, she doesn't find an issue of like a male superstar going with a fan. And I think she's like lacking understanding of the complexities of such a dynamic. Like, I don't know, I feel, and she was like fully, what was she saying? Oh my god, there was this point that she made about oh my god, it was literally right in my head. Or like a boss and employee, like, what's the big deal, essentially, about that relationship. And it's like, it's a case-by-case situation, right? We're not saying that such a relationship is like, there's no moral to it. Well, I guess there is in some, there is, but there isn't. There is and there isn't. It's just those relationships, there's a lot of things that are playing out in those relationships that you need to consider. And power and like money and gender and like race, very much part of the conversation. It feels very white. Like, it feels very white. It feels like she's writing from this perspective that even though she acknowledges her whiteness, she doesn't really reflect on how her position, you know? And then she was talking about this memoir about a man who talks about, like, a memoir about his drug addiction. I forgot his name. And she literally, like, in the same sentence, it's like this like wonderful, you know, amazing kind of very epic memoir about addiction, and then she goes on to say that he graphically details how he raped a woman under the influence. And I thought that the use of like describing his memoir to be so fantastic, but then almost ending the same sentence about him doing something horrible to another person, I found that very strange. So yeah, there are things that I not enjoy, but like I am enjoying because I like reading about these sorts of things, but on the other hand, I have a lot of issues with it. And I don't understand who the audience is. Because it's definitely not the wider public. It is for people in the academy, or like in academia, or on the periphery of academia. It honestly feels very Judith Butler. There's no real attempt to plain speak. It's very, very highbrow, very like vague theoretical references, and like the way that academics write in those types of like situations. I'm very used to it because that's just the way that most of my like field writes, but I really don't understand who it's for. And I guess you could say the same for the Argonauts, which is her memoir. It incorporated memoir and like theory, but I almost feel as though the Argonauts was slightly easier to read in comparison to On Freedom, which is saying something, because I struggled slightly with the Argonauts. And again, I just don't understand the audience. I don't really understand her point. I feel like this is just her writing for writing's sake. So I'll keep you updated. Hey everyone. So I started reading Fight Night by Miriam Toews. I hope you can hear me. I started reading Fight Night by Miriam Toews. It's really good. It's really good. If you don't know what it's about, it's from the perspective of Swiv, who is a young girl. She is suspended from school because she got into a fight, and she was like, but you told me to like fight and defend myself, to her grandmother. And her grandmother is named Elvira, and her mum is an actor, and her mum is also pregnant. And I feel like I've blown through this, really. It's so easy to read. I feel like it's a lot about grief and mourning and family, but also like life. I don't know. It's on one hand, it feels heartbreaking. I don't know how to explain it. But on the other hand, it also is heartwarming. It's a very weird feeling when I'm reading this book. And I think it is because it's from the perspective of Swiv. So, you know, she's learning about life through essentially her grandmother and her mum. But like, because she's suspended from school, she's spending so much time at home with her grandmother. So she's hearing lots of stories. She's learning a lot from her grandmother. Her grandmother is wild. Her grandmother is incredible, and she is like the best character. I love her. I love her so much. And so Swiv's dad is not in the picture anymore, and I think she's writing this, I don't know if it's like an extended letter or like some sort of journal situation. I'm pretty sure she's writing it to her father, If it's not her father, it'll be to her like youngest sibling, because her mum is pregnant. But it's absolutely awesome. It's awesome, and I'm having a really great time reading. I feel like this is going to break my heart at the end, but it's so good. And for any of you who have read Miriam Toews previously, what other books should I pick up from her? Like, tell me, because it's just written so interestingly. It also doesn't have like, for some people this might be an issue, but for me, it's not like a really big thing for me. But there's no like quotation marks, and there's no like, if dialogue is occurring, it's not like it's being, the formatting of the dialogue is just like within the text. It's not its own, like, they don't like Miriam Toews doesn't press enter, so you know that someone's having a conversation. It's just like all within the text. It feels kind of like stream of consciousness, but it's not. It's just really, really interesting. I'm having a really great time. I'm gonna hopefully finish it today because I'm procrastinating, so I thought, why not read? So I think I'm gonna do that. And yeah, I'm really, really excited. But again, I feel like it's gonna make me cry. Also, I got my nails done for my brother's engagement party, and I got them like accidentally a bit too long, but I didn't want to say anything or like ask if they can file it down, because now I feel like I have to conquer this length of nail. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to be a failure. I need to. And also just like the tapping sounds, it's just so cool. ASMR man. But like texting, so bad. It takes me so long to text with these claws and like typing on the computer. But I was teaching on Wednesday with them, and it gave me a sense of gravitas. I don't know, I felt like I had a lot more authority because of my nails. Okay, I'm gonna go finish this book. Okay, I finally finished On Freedom by Maggie Nelson. I finished it last night. I think I've mainly like said what I wanted to say in like the previous clip that you've seen. So like, my issue is that I really like most of what Maggie Nelson is saying. I think she she just uses language in a very beautiful way. However, I don't know who the demographic of this book is, because it's not the wider public. I feel like it's similar to Judith Butler, even Sarah Ahmed, like Wendy Brown. It's meant for academics or people to the periphery of academia. This is just a whole lot of my dog has something, but I have absolutely no idea what it is. What do you have there? It's a teddy bear. I better go get it off him. Honey bear, can I have a look at that? The aforementioned bear. No, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just something to be aware of. Maggie Nelson in this, she utilizes variety of like theorists and literature examples, even like just like media examples to like illustrate her point. But what happens is she uses so many, it feels like very much like a thesis, right? She uses so many of other people's examples or other people's theories to prove whatever she's arguing, which I think I said before, it's an argument that's not an argument, and maybe that is the point of this book, because it's about freedom. Maybe that is a type of freedom, to like not really say anything but at the same time say so much. Anyway, there's so much being introduced that she spends so much time explaining what the person that she's just used as an example, what they mean, or like providing background pertaining to that particular theorist or that particular memoir writer, that I feel like her voice at times feels lost. And like, so when she brings it back to herself and she brings her own experiences or her own kind of story to whatever essay, it feels slightly annoying. You're like, what are you doing here? Because it doesn't feel like her. I don't know. Maybe I feel like this because my past experience with Maggie Nelson is her memoir. It just kind of annoyed me at times. And it's very dense. It's very dense, and I don't think it needed to be this dense, because in actuality, what is she talking about? I wish I was at that point in my academic career to sit here and provide you like bullet point by bullet point what I had a problem with and like articulate why I found some of what she says problematic. But I don't have the words yet. I don't have the confidence yet to do so. But I said so before, and I will say it again, it feels very white woman in the ivory tower talking about privilege, power, control, but not really understanding the complexities of privilege, power, and control. My dog just ate something. I'm telling you, he ate something. He's eaten something. I'm telling you. He walked right past me without even looking at me. There was no eye contact. On purpose. He's done something. Did I ever tell you that he ate my brother's AirPods once? And we didn't realize, like Adrian just thought that he lost his AirPods because like he takes them to work. So he thought, oh, maybe I lost them at work, which unlike him, but that's what we just assumed. We found out that he ate Adrian's AirPods, that Hunter ate Adrian's AirPods when I was like picking up his shit in the backyard. And I saw these little white AirPods within his poo. Did I ever tell you that? Fun story. Oh my God, aren't you so excited that you know now? But back to this point, yes. So it feels like she's up here looking down and like observing and doing her academic analyses, talking about these issues, understanding these issues on a very theoretical, superficial level, but not engaging with her arguments or the literature that she's using in a way that explores the complexities of everything she's talking about. Like I've talked about before, how her like way of talking about consent and power, especially when talking about like, you know, boss and employee, or like a singer, like, or someone famous and their fans, she doesn't really understand how that dynamic can be at its foundational core imbalanced and coercive. And like, yes, like she does say it's like a case-by-case situation, but I feel like her, when she, you know, says, oh, it's case-by-case and like it can depend and blah, 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 it kind of, that's pushed to the side because she's basically said a blanket statement of like, oh, I don't see how that's an issue. And it's like, babe, because you're not understanding the dynamics here, or you do, but you're not analyzing your own biases and how your subjective perception of a situation, like, oh, if my favorite singer said to me, oh, like, come to the back with me, I'd be so excited and so happy. But okay, you're so excited and so happy, yeah. So because of the fact that you are literally in awe of him or her or them, you are a fan of them, you literally paid money to see them perform. If they were to ask you, like, come home with me or go to my hotel room, would you straight, like, to my face tell me that you would not feel a little bit pressured? Like, I just don't think that there was enough understanding of that. And that's just one example, and I'm going on and on about it. But then when because she does use a lot of like a variety of different authors and theorists when she's talking about her various points. And again, I've talked about her points. Her points are not points. Like, she says, there's a freedom in this, but there's also a freedom in the opposite of that. So like, freedom is as freedom is. Like, it is what it is. It is what it can be. Like, what is freedom? She doesn't really know, because is there such thing when we're living in like a democratic capitalist society? So I think that's what she's saying. But again, I don't know, because her point is overshadowed by everything else. Anyway, so even though she's like a diversity of people and experiences, she still doesn't quite engage with things. I need to go check my dog, 1 second. So the chapter that I found like more problematic, or my interpretation of it, was the one on drug fugue, because I feel like that entire chapter was such a confusing read. And I think it's because she talks about how, you know, drug addiction is the ultimate freedom, but then she's saying that sobriety is also a freedom. They're just two different kinds of freedom. And she uses a lot of the memoirs or like examples that she utilizes are from like mostly white cis men. And there's a point where she talks about how a lot of writers back in the day, like, is it Kurak? All those types of writers who talked about their experiences with drugs, or like wrote books about people who had like a drug addiction. I'm pretty sure there's a talk specifically about memoirs. And they talked about this idea of like, they introduced this type of like, oh, white men have nothing anymore. Like, white men are not happy because white men want to victimize themselves. So she says that they look towards the people that they've marginalized and suppressed and oppressed and colonized and essentially like violated throughout history. Like, white men, these particular white men do that, or white men, you know, historically do that. It's a type of like psychological association with like drug addicts, is what she's saying. It's confusing. For instance, like, I think it was Kurak who said, like, he wants to be like, you know, an African American man, because they know what it's like to be, you know, like their existence to be just horribly kind of demeaned because of like white society. And he wants to be like that because they know true freedom because of what they've experienced. And it's like the terminology that was created was like the white N-word. She spends time on that, and I don't know if that time was necessarily needed. And then at the end, I think I dog-eared it, because I was just like, you're not really saying anything of substance. Oh, maybe I didn't dog-ear it. I just found it annoying that like she then brings up the differences between how specifically like white men who are addicts are portrayed, or how they are written, and how the like broader society kind of take them in, and how they're perceived in comparison to women. And she says that, and then like it's either a paragraph later, it talks about, you know, these great writers are the ones who put forward this idea of like male privilege and without realizing it. But then she doesn't really discuss like the issues with that. I don't know, it just felt, I'm not articulating myself properly, it just felt very surface level and very stupid. Like, it just felt really stupid. Then I dog-eared this page because I thought that the way that this was written, I found a problem with, and I could be just being too critical. But listen to this. So it's talking about the Anthropocene, this particular period that theorists are categorizing the now, which is a really interesting concept and one that I don't really quite understand. It's about like living with the impact that we ourselves have done to like our earth. But so she's talking about the Anthropocene. So this is a quote from writer Catherine Yusof. The Anthropocene might seem to offer a dystopic future that laments the end of the world, but imperialism and ongoing settler colonialisms have been ending worlds for as long as they have been in existence, end quote. Very true. This is what Maggie Nelson says. After centuries of such exportation, it might seem grotesque to turn around and seek guidance on mourning and survival from those whose pasts and presents have been ravaged by imperialism, colonialism, environmental degradation, and slavery. All the more reason then not to seek guidance per se, but to let those with more wisdom as to how to live past game over lead the way. I just think that last sentence I found issue with. And I remember reading this last night and going, eh. It gave me a little bit of an ick, because that's what you're asking them. Like, especially like for instance, Indigenous communities. You're saying you're going to finally, like essentially you're going to finally sit down and listen. Like finally sit down and listen to those with more wisdom. Now, she's just talked about like the centuries of fucking violence that's communities have faced as a result of colonization and ongoing colonization and the effects of that. And she wrote this sentence not thinking maybe the use of the word wisdom in relation to their end of their worlds. I just feel like it's very like, your world has ended, like your worlds have ended, you know, your worlds have ended because of like white people and like settler and like invasion, colonization. But like you got wisdom from that experience. So now that we as a broader, you know, white society are feeling the impacts of our own fucked up decisions and our own fucked up legacy of slaughter, violence, oppression, we're gonna listen to you. And we're gonna let you tell us how to sit with that experience. Like, doesn't that just seem really fucking condescending? It just, that's how I interpreted that sentence. Maybe, and I'm most likely interpreting it wrong, but I interpreted that sentence as like a, you know, and maybe like, I gave this 3 stars because again, there were parts of it. Like when she talks about the introduction of the steam engine as being theorized as that was the beginning of the end of the world, that really hit me. And like the last chapter was like hard to read because it was about like our climate and our earth and how we're killing it. From her perspective, it's like she has the privilege which enables her a freedom to like be able to sit with the issues that she talks about in this book in a way that many other women who are not white are not afforded to do. They're not afforded the privilege, and other people who are not white are not, like, I'm talking generally, are not afforded the privilege. Like, it just kind of comes across as a bit inaccessible and just like not the vibe. And I hope that the language that I've used is in no way offensive. If it is, please let me know, just like DM me. But like I got really angry at parts of this because I feel like this could have been done better. But I feel like it could have been done better if Maggie Nelson wasn't the one writing it. And this took her so long to write, and you can kind of tell. Like, you can kind of tell there are parts of this that just needed to be maybe got rid of. Like, I feel like she just should have pushed back the deadline for this and started writing it in 2020. Like, because she finished this in 2020. You should have started writing this in 2020. I feel like our world is just so different from even 2020. Like, it's just, there's just so much difference, and there's just so much that's happened that it already feels outdated. She started writing this book the beginning of Trump's presidency. So what was that? Was that 2016, 2017? So it feels like 15,000 years ago. So yeah, I feel like I'm happy that I read it because I now know what I want from Maggie Nelson. I'm not remembering the parts that I thought were interesting. I'm remembering the parts that were annoying and problematic to me. I don't know if I ever gave a final update to Fight Night by Miriam Toews. So let's quickly talk about it because I have nothing else to add other than this was great. Heartbreaking, heartwarming. Whatever I said previously about this book in the prior clips, like, is correct. Stand by it. If you've watched my July reading wrap up, you know my thoughts about this book. I loved it so much. I gave it 4 stars because the ending was a bit but I still really loved the way Miriam Toews like created the story. And even though most of this book is from the perspective of a very young girl, it doesn't feel like a young girl's perspective. It's very much Swiv, the main character. It's very much about her and from her perspective, and she's writing this story, or she's telling the story. But because the focus of the story is Grandma Elvira, it lends itself to a bit more like of a mature audience. I don't know. I don't think I would have read this as a teenager. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm trying to say. I think the audience for this is definitely like adults. I just loved it. I loved it, and I want to read more by Miriam Toews. That was a doozy. Also, I'm gonna go see Barbie tonight, which is really exciting. But I'm also gonna see if I can get Jonas Brothers tickets. I know, random, but my brother was like, Jonas Brothers are coming next year. Do you want a ticket? I'm like, yes. Do I want a ticket? Please, of course. So because I'm the only one that's home, I need to organize that. So fingers crossed for me that I actually get a ticket, because I feel like my brother will disown me if I don't. He loves the Jonas Brothers. He's a Joe Bro fan. He's a Joe Bro bro? He's a Joe Bro bro. Yeah, that's basically my plan for today. I better go reading, and I will keep you updated and check in with you later. My mum is singing Greek music. It's like 9:30 at night. Here's Hunter. I don't know if you can tell, but I finished. I started and finished Hex by accident. Like, I wasn't planning on it, and I just did. And I'm really sorry for not updating you all, but oh my god. I cried. This was great. This was so good. So good. I really want to read more from Jenni Fagan. I wonder what else. I cried. Such a short novel, but like, so good. I don't know what else to say. I can't believe how good that was. Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
This ghost haunts me every single night. From afar they turn to shooting stars. Hold me tight, 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 tight. All the darkest secrets I have violently thrown at the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, overburdened, take the weight off my shoulders, I'm begging. Sunday morning, guess I'm sunk to my knees on my own words of solace. Quicksand, loads of friends right now, I see no one. They plead innocent, carpet-handed. Draw the curtains, balloons are deflated. No mercy, yeah. That's a crying for help me. Guess I cast a spell on myself, so sadly. If those haunts me every single night, from afar they turn to shooting stars. Hold me tight, 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 tight. All the darkest secrets I have finally thrown at the bottom of
to update you all yesterday. I read the final book for this vlog, my little short story collection that I picked up from the library, Sabrina and Corina, by fajardo-anistine. Yesterday, okay, let me just talk. First of all, don't look at my pimples, okay? I'm breaking out. Anyway, yesterday, I was not feeling well. I don't know if you can tell. I'm still not like 100%. So yesterday, I literally just sat on the couch and read this. I read this in a day. It was wonderful. It really was. I gave this 3.5 stars. I think it was just so great. It was just really great. You know, just like a solid, great short story collection. I do think I felt, maybe because I was unwell, but towards like the last couple of stories, I was like, okay, can we kind of get to the point? Can we get to the finish line? Because I was just kind of losing interest, but I think that was more me. But it was great. What are these stories about? These are like separate short stories, but also they all do kind of interweave with each other because it all takes place in like the similar area, like Colorado, Denver situation. I don't live in the US. I don't know if that's... Anyway, are they the same place? I'm guessing they are. I don't know. And these characters that we're talking about are mostly women, and they're mostly like South American / indigenous women. So a lot of these also take place in the past, so not in our contemporary timeline. Some of them hit me hard, I'm not gonna lie. There was this one story specifically, I think it was called, let me have a look, Galapago. I was crying. It's about this older woman. She's a grandmother. Her husband, you know, passed away. She's living in her house, and her granddaughter is like, Grandma, you can't live here by yourself anymore. Then she gets burgled, and then it's like a horrible situation, and she's going into, you know, an aged care home, and just, it was really sad. It was really sad, and it really affected me. And I think because of my personal like history with my grandmother, it just got me, and I thought that was really beautiful. Callie really writes with such a distinct voice, and she also writes with a real, I don't know, like it feels very there's a care to every story that she writes, even if the women that she's writing about are incredibly flawed and are not making the greatest decisions for themselves or for their family. But there's such a care and a gentleness in ensuring that, you know, their stories are being heard regardless. And we have a myriad of women from different walks of life, from different walks of life, who are just trying to survive the best way that they can. They encounter and are confronted with the kind of horrible sort of discrimination and racism. And I apologize for my dog, but I'm still going to talk. Discrimination, and as well as just like commentary on existing as not only a woman, but a woman of color, like who is indigenous, who is South American, or Latina characters of indigenous ancestry. So I apologize. And it's just, at times it can feel bleak, you know. It feels bleak, the way that these women are treated by, you know, not only the kind of broader society, but like their families, their spouses, the men that they encounter. It's, yeah, it can be a lot. But this is a debut collection. Like, holy shit, I can't believe it's a debut collection. I love short story collections. I think when authors write short story collections, for some reason, I think it demonstrates more of their like diversity in terms of their like writing talent. I feel like short story collections where a lot of authors are able to just write whatever they want, and because it's a short story, there's like a care involved because they need to make it have an impact in a very, very small amount of time instead of having like an entire novel. So I just think I love short story collections, and I cannot wait to see what Callie does in the future, because she is definitely someone that I want to read in the future. It's about history, it's about grappling with your ancestry and your family, and about kind of, you know, women, you know, it's about being a woman, about beauty and aging, but also about like mourning and what is motherhood. It's just a really great collection. If you find this at your library or find it on Scribd or whatever, I would highly recommend to give it a read. It kind of gives similar, like, not vibes, but if you enjoyed The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Disha Filior, which is my favorite short story collection of all time. I don't own it. I borrowed it from the library years ago. When I find it and when I can afford it, I will purchase it, because it's just like that. I remember reading that short story collection and being just like on the floor. It was amazing. If you enjoyed that short story collection, and maybe kind of Mariana Enriquez, a short story, although she writes like more gothic short story collections, that similar energy of writing women as they are, right? And just like, regardless of what they do, who they are, just kind of giving them a voice. Pick this up. Pick it up. It's really bloody good. You're gonna have a solid time. Leaves you thinking. It makes you just feel things. You know, it made me feel things. I'm so happy that I was able to actually pick this up and read it. And that's the end of this reading vlog. Thank you so much for being here with me. We had a really great reading vlog, didn't we? We read Fight Night, we read On Freedom, we read, what else did I read? Was that all? Hex. And we read Sabrina and Corina. I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like this is going to be a very big one, very big vlog. We also went into the city, did some work. I got a couple of books. I passed my PhD. So yeah, okay. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have a lovely morning, night. Subscribe if you haven't, please. It means a lot to me. And I will see you all in next week's video. Happy reading, friends. Bye.